Can everyone hear and see me? Hi, everybody. Perfect. So, for anyone who's here who doesn't know me, my name is Carrsan. I have been producing content on this channel with Shelby Davis for a couple of years now, and we are here to talk about my first novel that I wrote, which is insane to say out loud. I'm incredibly proud of it. It's so cool to finally be like talking about it. Hello, everyone. So I'll give it a couple moments just for anyone who's not watching right now to join us, and then we'll get started. Basically, this is just a Q&A. So any questions that you have about the book, about the process, about anything, feel free to ask. All right, and pardon me for a moment while I spam my social media with the fact that I'm live about this right now. All right. Hi, everybody. So anyway, we are talking about Old Wounds, which I'm very excited about. This is the first ever printed copy of the book that I just got in the mail this week, which was an incredibly surreal experience. It's really gorgeous. The cover art is by Tina Eriksson. She is a Danish artist that I met through Facebook, and she did this incredible cover art for the book. So the book is actually currently available for pre-order on Amazon. We'll get to that in a moment, but I just got my first question. Great question. Were you inspired by the smiley face killer urban legend and conspiracies? Kind of. I was actually inspired by... Okay, so I've been really obsessed with this kind of archetype of the Hat Man, if you've ever heard of that. It's associated a lot with like sleep paralysis, but it's also just like an internet legend. Basically, people just tend to be afraid of a dark figure wearing a wide brim hat. So I kind of combined that idea with like the smiley face killer and other just like creepy smiling monsters from internet mythology, but also just historical mythology. So yeah, that was definitely one inspiration. It's Fairy Day is a lot of different things. So the villain of the book, Mr. Fairy Day, is the one that you obviously hear his name like 50 times throughout that teaser, and he's the creepy smiling figure that haunts the main character of this book, whose name is Lillian. Good question. All right, here's my question. What themes from your previous work, Ingrid, etc., will find their way into this novel? A lot of them, actually. So the funny story about this novel, I started it in 2016. So I've been working on it on and off again for about 4 years. And it has a lot of themes in common with my current work because actually a lot of the short films and horror films that Shelby and I made sort of sprouted from this book. Like not like any of them specifically, but just like characters from the book or like themes that I was trying to explore would kind of find their way into the movies. Like Woland, for instance, sort of was an offshoot of Fairy Day, the character that I'm working on in this book. They're completely different characters, but it's fair to say that things I was working on while writing this kind of formed branches and became other characters and other monsters that found their way into the film. So it's definitely a safe bet that if you like the short films, you'll enjoy the book probably even more because it's so unfiltered. I think that's what I really enjoy about writing is that, you know, when you make a movie, you write a script, but then you have to try to make it come to life visually. Whereas with the book, I can just write anything I want, and I don't have to worry about whether or not we can make it work on camera or use special effects to make it happen. Yes. So also for those of you joining who are old fans of the channel, yes, obviously we have all of our like Life is Strange movies and other films that we've done. This isn't so much related to any of that. Obviously, we haven't really been able to produce anything film wise because of COVID-19. That's why I sat down and finished this book. Um, but as we've said in the past, we're not really making any more Life is Strange movies, and that's just a personal decision. I told the stories that I want to tell. Um, but yes, as far as the way that our current original content relates to the book, there will be a lot of recognizable themes, a lot of the same topics are explored, but I would definitely say the book is far more unfiltered. The book is pretty harsh in tone, which is something that I really like. I'm a big fan of kind of telling a story, warts and all. Following. Um, so yes, for those of you that don't know, I recently moved, Shelby and I moved to a lovely little place that we're affectionately calling Hickory House. I don't know any cool, creepy history about the house. The house is pretty benign and wonderful. It does not have anything creepy associated with it that I know. That being said, it's early, so who knows? Maybe we'll find something out. There's got to be a ghost around here somewhere. Oh, hey, Shelby just shouted from the living room. She's right. You actually see it in the trailer for Old Wounds. There is a creepy little room in our basement that seemingly serves no purpose and has a bolt on the lock. Like a locking bolt to get in there. It's really creepy and it's full of spiders. So maybe something terrible happened in there at some point. Don't know. Yes, the caveat is at this present time. Other questions? I'm going to be here for a little while. Oh, everyone just wants to know what I thought of Life is Strange 2. I liked Life is Strange 2. I liked a lot about it. Where will the novel be available? Good question. The novel will be available everywhere, in theory. It'll be available worldwide on Amazon. It is actually available right now on Amazon. That is the really, really big, exciting part of this. Right now, you can go pre-order this book for yourselves. It comes out on May 15th, 2021. That is when the book will be shipped to you or when you will receive the ebook. It is both as this gorgeous paperback that I'm holding in my hands and as an ebook for those of you that prefer to read your books that way. I have to be honest, if you can afford to order the paperback at $16.99, do it. I'm not saying that because the paperback is more expensive. I actually make less money on the paperback because it has to be produced, but my God, the cover art. The cover art is so beautiful. Tina deserves to have this art everywhere. It's so well put together. For those of you wondering, I used Ingram Spark to self-publish the book. Cannot recommend them enough. Wonderful interface. And the book will likely be available at Barnes & Noble as well as Amazon and as well as a lot of other smaller book publishing agencies all over the world. I really have no way of knowing or controlling where it will be available because Ingram Spark just makes the metadata available for everyone. So I'll be updating on my website, which is something else that I need to talk about. I am officially launching a website for myself. It's just Carrsan T. Morrissey, CarrsanTMorrissey.com. It is where I will be putting all the updates for Old Wounds as well as other artistic projects going forward. I will also still be publishing on YouTube, of course. All right, lots of good questions. What is the setting time frame rise? It is set right now. It is set in the modern day. Technically, it's set in like 2018, which is when the book was written, but you won't be able to tell. But it does take place in the current world. Very much so, in fact. Definitely everything going on in the world had a bit of an effect on the way that I wrote this book. So it is very current. And Lillian had her spooky times in the year 2000. Whatever happened to Lillian, the horrible event that you will hear about in the prologue that I'll be reading out loud in about 20 minutes, happened in the year 2000. Where do I find the motivation for creating my characters? They come from a lot of places. A lot of times I come up with stories while listening to music, but they just kind of appear, honestly. A lot of times I think of my villains before I think of my heroes, but Lillian has a long lineage. She, I would say, started as a character that I made up in high school, and has just kind of evolved and changed over the years. Almost every protagonist of every film I've released has a little bit of Lillian in them. She's kind of my fully evolved protagonist. And obviously, she'll change too. But my characters come from everywhere. They come from people I know. They come from stories I hear. They come from movies I like. They come from people I see on the street. Everywhere. Do I plan on releasing an audiobook version? Yes, I do. Actually, the person that you heard reading in the trailer, Kendrick Lime, is going to be recording the audiobook eventually. But that's a little ways down the line, but it will happen. What subgenres of horror do you feel most comfortable writing for? I would call my style like almost like modern folk horror. Like, I try to write stories that I feel like could be like urban legends or like realistic fantasy. Definitely supernatural, but I never try to go too far into like impossibility. I try to really ground my stories in reality, at least, with the characters. And even with the monsters, like Mr. Faraday, even though he is a pseudo-supernatural entity, he's very human in his personality and in his behaviors, for better and for worse. So I would call it like modern folk tale is really what I try to go for. What happens next for me? It's a good question. Yeah, it's gonna be really weird being done writing Old Wounds. Like I said, I've been working on this book for like 4 years, but the inspiration for it has been around since I was in high school. I will say this and nothing more. Just because I'm done with the book doesn't mean I'm done with the characters in the book. I'll stop there. As someone just pre-ordered it, thank you so much, Finch. I really appreciate it. Have I ever participated in NaNoWriMo? Once in high school. It didn't go well. I'm not good at following any kind of schedule. So I just kind of write whenever I want to write. So I might try it again, maybe this year, but no promises. And yes, Albie, you can pre-order it on Amazon currently. There will be a link in the description of this video. There is currently a link in the description of the trailer video. I'll be posting it all over the place very, very soon. Any thoughts on adapting Old Wounds as a screenplay? No comment. Delaney. What advice do you have for someone looking to complete a novel? As a badass published author now. Wow, thank you. My advice would be to not fight your intuition. I found that my writer's block got the worst when I was thinking too hard about what I was writing. I think you just have to sit down and write. And I know that's the stupidest sounding advice I can give, but honestly, if you get too much in your own head and you think too much about where you're going and what you want to be writing, you'll never write anything. So just sit down and write it. You can always go back and change it when it's done. I wrote and rewrote chapters in this book dozens of times. I don't really work in drafts. I tend to just work in one living draft until it's done. So you just have to sit down and write. Even if it's bad. Even if it's the worst thing ever and you go back and you think, oh my God, why did I write that? The main thing that's going to help you get your book done is just content. Because you can't move on to where you want to get with the book until you've written what you're at now. So that would be my main advice. If you have to outline, you can certainly outline. I'm terrible at outlining, so it's not advice that I can give. But also that can help. Have you gotten the chance to check out Gaspar Noé's new film, Lux Eterna? I have not yet. I love Gaspar Noé, even though his films are super intense. But I loved Climax. I love his other films. I have not watched his new one yet, but I want to. I hear it's just like a giant music video, which I'm here for. So, what exactly is the timeline it took to write this novel? What major evolutions did it go through? It started as a book based on two characters that I made about that I put in films in the past. It was loosely based on characters from Play Dead and An Exorcism. It is now completely different from both of those films, but I actually started it based on other things that I made. It changed a lot. Woland was an offshoot of it, and it kind of just became its own thing. It took it a long time to find its own voice. I think that's what I would say. It took me a long time to figure out what was unique about Lillian's story, different from everything else that I was working on. And it changed a lot, and now I'm incredibly proud of it, and it's very different from everything else. But that would be my short, easy answer to that. You love the fact that Shelby's in the living room watching the live stream. Yes, she is. And I love her and appreciate that. Thank you for pre-ordering, Albie. I really appreciate it. I have no idea how I would go about making an Until Dawn movie. It's super cool, and I love Wendigo lore, but I will leave that to somebody with a far bigger budget and more time on their hands. Yes, Albie, you do know exactly what that means. Thank you for the compliments on the spooky shirt. It is my favorite shirt. Are there any films or TV shows you've seen recently that I would recommend? I mean, lots. The most recent film I just watched that I was excited about was I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which I loved the first 3/4 of it. Wasn't a huge fan of the ending because I'm a big fan of the book. That's always an impossible question for me because there's always a million. I don't know. Honestly, the last like 2 or 3 weeks have been a blur because we've been moving into Hickory House, so I haven't been watching a lot of like new things. So I'm planning to get caught up soon. Let me come back to that question, Connor. How did I choose names for my characters? They went through a lot of different changes of names, actually. Lillian was not named Lillian until the book was almost finished. She was first named Adrian because Adrian is just like the stock name I give to all of my protagonists until I change it to something else or decide that I like it. Those of you that know me know that's entirely true. And then her name was... Oh, God. There was something between Adrian and Lillian. A lot. I think Arwen. She was named Arwen Lillian. Mr. Faraday went through a couple name changes, too. Originally, he had no name. And then he was Mr. Woland for a while until that became a different character that some of you already know. And then he went back to having no name, and then he was just the entity for a while, which was not good. And then eventually I arrived at Faraday, which I love. Do I give my characters nicknames in my head? Not really. I kind of just call them whatever their name is. None of my characters are fun enough. None of them would like nicknames. They don't have a sense of humor. So no, they don't really have nicknames in my head, as fun of a concept as that is. Would I consider writing a horror book relating to the last year we've been living in? Everything that I write relates to what I see going on in the world around me, even if it's in a very abstract way. I would say I can't not write based on what I'm seeing. So even though nothing in Old Wounds is identifiably 2020, you'll catch things here and there that probably relate. What mental journey did I personally have to walk through to tell a story this gripping and raw? Thank you. Kay has actually read the book. Fun fact, the Raindrop Corner Presents is their YouTube name. They have actually read Old Wounds and reviewed it on the Facebook page, which means the world to me. Writing the book didn't really put me through much of a mental journey, because it's all just about recovery. Certainly I've had trauma in my life that I pulled from when writing it. I mean, I tried to make it as real as possible, but I definitely had to decide how real to make it. Making movies, I've always kind of held back because there are things that you want to show and things that you don't want to show on screen. With the book, I just decided I was going to put it all out there. And that was definitely a decision of coming to terms with the fact that I was going to do that, and whatever happened, happened. So I had to become a bit more comfortable with myself and my art, I would say. Apparently I'm lagging. I'm sorry to hear that. I don't know if it's still happening, but apparently I was at one point. Oh, and I just lost like 8 people, probably because of the lagging. Sorry, everyone. Any more questions about the book? Do I have plans for future novels? I do have plans for future novels. I actually know what I'm going to write next. I don't want to say it yet. It is not a sequel in any way to Old Wounds. It's a completely original story. But I don't want to say it yet because if I say it, I'll jinx myself and I won't write it. But yes, I am actually already like 10 pages into what I'm going to write next. Really excited about it. It's completely out of left field from anything else I've ever made. It is not based on anything I've ever released. It's crazy. Do I feel that I'll carry the candidness into my future works, be it literary or cinema? Yes. I have actually decided that everything I make film-wise going forward will be just as brutal and honest as this book is. So yeah, I don't know how YouTube-friendly my films are going to stay going forward. But yes, that was definitely an awakening that I had while making this book, is that I realized I don't want to make art that isn't honest anymore. How do I go about assembling a crew for a film? I have wonderful friends who are very talented, and so it's not particularly difficult. I am making one thing before the year 2020 ends, even though I wasn't able to make anything else because of COVID. I'm making one tiny weekend-long project, and ironically, it is going to be the most technically complex thing I've ever made, and I have a wonderful crew assembled for it. Ben Schmidt, who has done camera work for me in the past and is just ludicrously talented. And also a couple other friends of mine who are going to be running sound and lighting, things like that. It's going to be crazy, incredibly excited about it. But mostly, I know people that I ask. But also, I would recommend look in your local area, see if there is a filmmaker page or an actors page. A lot of people want to make movies, so it's just about finding people that you can work with. How did I manage writing long form? I've always been way too long-winded, if you can't tell by my answer to every question. But it was a challenge. Like I said, my main mantra, especially toward the end, was just keep writing. Every time I would get to a point where I was like, this is stupid and I don't know where I'm going, I would just force myself to write the next 10 pages, like no matter where it was going. And then if I had to, I could double back and fix it. But I think the main issue that you run into and the main issue that I ran into was just keep going. It's very easy to hit the wall and then just stop and then put the book away for 6 months and then you never pick it up again. So my main advice, if you want to write long form, is just keep cranking out words. 1,000 words a day if you can. And if you have to go back and rewrite it all when it's done, you do. But at least you've written it. Great question. Any other questions? We're about at 23 minutes. I want to give it like another 10 minutes before I read. Thank you to everybody watching this, by the way. It's so cool to be able to talk to all of you guys about this. This book has been on my mind for so long. Did I prefer Shrek or Sonic the Hedgehog? Difficult choice. Shrek was a childhood movie, close to my heart, but I have to say Sonic was better than I expected. Authors that inspire me. My favorite author, bar none, is Clive Barker. Clive Barker is my, like, aspire to be like author. The way that he balances gorgeous poetic prose with raw, scary horror is unparalleled. He also lacks the misogyny and other problems that I tend to have with male authors. Clive Barker is the man. Couldn't recommend him more. His Books of Blood, which is a 6-part anthology series of different short novellas and stories, are the best horror you'll ever read. They're so good. It's never too much. He knows exactly where to draw the line. Brilliant author. He's my muse. Love him. Thank you, guys. I love you too. I have to ask, seems right up your alley. What did you think of The Last of Us 2? The Last of Us 2 is the greatest game I have ever played, and yes, I'm saying that on this channel, despite knowing what that means. The Last of Us 2 is an artistic achievement that is unparalleled. It doesn't feel like a game, it feels like you're reading a classic piece of literature. It's so good. Everybody should play it. It's the bleakest, most heartbreaking experience you'll ever have, but my God, unparalleled. The Last of Us 2 is amazing. Yeah, I'm sure when you read this book, you'll be like, yeah, I get why they like The Last of Us 2. How do you feel about memoirs? What makes a good one? Do I want to write one day? Yeah, I know. I'm sorry I said it. I love memoirs. One of my favorite books, actually, oh my God, Darling Days by Io Tillett Wright is one of my favorite novels. It is a memoir. I think that memoirs are incredible when they're honest. I don't like memoirs that are just a person trying to talk about, look how amazing and wonderful my life was and all the great things I did. I do want to write a memoir when I'm 70. But yeah, I love memoirs. I think that they're incredible. Amanda Palmer also wrote a memoir self-help book called The Art of Asking, which is fantastic. How do you refill your creative juices when you feel like they've been used up? I have the benefit of a mind that never stops bothering me. I think I was lagging for a moment, but I think I managed to stop before it got too bad. I have the benefit of a mind that never stops bothering me. So for me, it's honestly more about whittling down what's a good idea and what's a terrible idea. I have a lot of bad ideas, and occasionally I'll have a decent idea. But when I am feeling burnt out, I either switch to another project, even if I know I'm not going to finish it, or I stop and watch movies for a few days until something inspires me. But I admit, and I don't even mean this as a brag. It's really not. It's more of a problem than anything. But I rarely find myself unable to work on something creative. If anything, my creative pursuits tend to interrupt my things that I actually should be working on. Music and movies, though, are my main elixir of relaxation. Outside of the tone and content and subject matter, what kind of mechanical achievements do you personally feel you're experienced writing your novel? I mean, honestly, just finishing a novel. Knowing that I wrote almost 60,000 words and they all string together to form one cohesive story is really cool. Knowing that I can do that is really neat. It's so different because everything I've done up to this point has been visual. I've been a filmmaker. Now I wrote a book, which is a completely different experience. So obviously it's wonderful to know that I can do that. Also, I don't know. I admit I did find out a lot about myself writing this book. I think just the way that I realized I wanted people to perceive me while reading this book told me a lot about myself, in a good way. But I would say it gave me a sense of confidence to write this book. What music or song would be my character's theme song? She has two. She has two theme songs. One is Clever Girl by Sharptooth. And one is, oh my God, Through the Valley. I don't remember the artist's name that wrote the song. It was used in the promotional material for The Last of Us 2. But I listened to it and I cried because it reminded me of Lillian. She has a lot of other songs that remind me of her, but those would be my main two. The main themes for Fairy Day would be You Can Leave Your Hat On, the Joe Cocker version, Intruder by a guy, I don't remember his name, and those would be the big two. I have a lot of music that inspires my characters. Do you think your novel will read differently because you've been primarily a visual artist compared to a traditional writer? Actually, yes, just based on what people have told me. I have been told that it's a very visual book. It's very driven by color and visual experiences. Again, this is all other people's opinions. It's hard for me to judge my own writing, but I'm very detail-oriented in how I describe things. If anything, I worry that I over-describe characters and things like that, but I like character building. So, yeah, I definitely think that will be a factor. Does music help inspire you during writing? Yes, I used to actually write while listening to music. I can't really do that anymore. But I will I will listen to music up until I'm ready to write, and then I'll sit down and write with the music playing in my head. But yes, I tend to create scenes while listening to music. The entire climax of this book was written while listening to the song Attack off of the soundtrack to the movie The Invisible Man that came out just before the pandemic. Do I ever listen to music while writing? Rarely. It's distracting to me now. But I do occasionally listen to music while writing. Any other questions? These are all really good. Otherwise, I won't keep everybody waiting for too long because we've had about the same 15 people. So I don't want to make you guys wait too long to hear the prologue. But I'll take any last minute questions you guys have. My top 5 emojis. I can't look right now because I'm looking at my phone, but I'll tell you it's like purple heart, smiley face, kissy face, knife emoji, black heart, probably. Lost Utopia Films, Terrell, I love you. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Lost Utopia Films, who just commented, is like the best visual filmmaker in my entire area. Go subscribe to their channel. Oh my God. You won't regret it. What did I use to publish? No, good question. I did already answer this, but I'll say it one more time because I want to give them another shout out. Ingram Spark is what I used. They're a wonderful service. It does cost, I think it's like $49.99 to use it. Worth it. It's worth every penny. Yes, it is on Amazon. The link will be posted in the description below. You can also find the link currently on the trailer video that just premiered, and you can also find it at my website, carrsantmorrissey.com. CarsanTMorrissey.com. All right. You know what? I think we're just going to go ahead and do this. So what I'm going to read for you guys is the prologue of the book. This is the beginning. I guess I'll just do it. This is weird. I just have to say it's the most wonderful, surreal feeling to hold this. All right. Old Wounds, a novel by Carrsan T. Morrissey. This story is dedicated to Shelby, who is always and forever my dearest love, and Steve, whose memory I will venerate for all my life. We're too much ourselves, afraid of letting go of what we are, in case we are nothing, and holding on so tight we lose everything else. Clive Barker, Imagica. And he asked him, "What is thy name?" And he answered, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Mark, chapter 5, verse 9, the King James Bible. Prologue. 1. Monday, November 27th, 2000, 4:49 a.m. Lily awoke in her bed with a start. She looked around, thinking someone had jolted her from sleep, but the bedroom was empty. She felt groggy, half asleep and a little bit sick. She was usually a very heavy sleeper. Rosie, who slept on the top bunk, was much easier to wake up. The room was dark and quiet, and Lily was about to drift back to sleep when she was startled by a sudden blaring of sound, slightly muffled by the walls between its source and her room. Trumpets. Music. Mr. Faraday had told her that when she heard music, it meant the game was starting. It was coming from somewhere outside her room, but not very far away. She couldn't be sure, but she thought it might be coming from her parents' bedroom. Usually this wouldn't be strange. Her dad loved to play his records, but never that loud, and never this early in the morning. The longer she was awake, the more she remembered. She was supposed to go find Mr. Faraday. But Lily wasn't sure she wanted to find Mr. Faraday anymore. She kept thinking of what he looked like out in the yard the previous afternoon. Those huge black eyes, round and glistening with strange red light. That smile which stretched up past his cheeks like the Cheshire Cat's. That voice, soft and dissonant, which seemed to come from every direction at once. The wail of trumpets receded, replaced by a bouncy piano melody and a man with a deep and gravelly voice singing, "Baby, take off your coat, real slow." Lily. Lily jumped at the sound of her own name, bumping her head on the top bunk above her. She poked her head out of her bunk and looked up to see Rosie, her twin sister, or rather her round and frightened eyes, peeking out over the edge of the bed. She blinked many times as if their current situation was a dream from which she was trying to wake herself up. "Yeah?" Lily replied, trying to sound casual. "What is that?" "One of Daddy's records, I think." "Why is Daddy playing one of his records at—" Rosie consulted the clock at the far side of their bedroom. "Almost 5 in the morning." I don't know," Lily lied. "I'm scared." Rosie sounded close to tears. "Why are you scared?" Lily almost asked. "It's just music." But Lily was scared too. Very scared. It occurred to her that the music had started after she woke up. It hadn't been what had woken her up in the first place. So what had? As if to answer her question, another sound trickled out from behind the closed door of her parents' bedroom. It started soft, but got steadily louder and louder. It was a scream. A woman's scream. "Please," begged the voice that had just screamed from a few rooms over. "Arthur, please, please, God, stop hurting me, please." The final word dissolved into another long, unbearable shriek. And then came the reply, which was worse than the screaming. A laugh, low and syrupy sounding. "You can leave your hat on," crooned the man in the song on the record player. Or was it the man with the syrupy laugh? Lily couldn't tell. "Was that Mommy?" Rosie's voice was shaking so bad it was like she was vibrating. I think so," Lily whispered, as if the thing with the horrible voice would hear her over the music. Lily's fear had plateaued and been replaced by a strange numbness. She wasn't sure what to call it. This was all happening so fast. "Arthur, Arthur," Lily's mother's voice was hoarse from screaming. "I love you. I'm begging you. Please." Something seemed to cover her mouth, stifling the sound of another hair-raising shriek. Then, just below the sound of the music, the syrupy voice. "Shh. Quiet, honey. You'll wake the children." And another low, wet laugh. Before she realized what she was doing, Lily felt her feet hit the carpeted floor. She stood up and turned around to look at Rosie, seeing only a pair of wide, watery eyes peering out from under the blanket. "What are you doing?" Rosie hissed. "This is my fault," Lily said flatly. "What?" "It's Mr. Faraday." "What? Who's that?" "Mr. Faraday," Lily explained. "The smiling man. I met him in the yard today. I told him he could come in tonight." "Stay here with me," Rosie begged. "I don't want to be by myself." Another shriek, louder and sharper than the last ones, followed by a series of quick, rhythmic moans and grunts of pain that sounded more animal than human. Lily and Rosie stared in that direction for a few moments before Lily resumed her robotic march into the hallway, ignoring Rosie's questions and protests. "They don't know what love is," the raspy man sang, and trumpets wailed in reply. In every moment of silence, Lily could hear low moans and desperate pleas getting quieter and quieter. She heard other, quieter sounds too. Horrible, wet noises that Lily had no basis or explanation for. She got closer to the door. "They don't know what love is." Trumpets, begging, the soft, muffled thud of something impacting someone's skin. Lily got closer. She put her hand on the knob. "I know what love is." Lily began to turn the knob and the music abruptly stopped. She heard something big and heavy move fast toward the door. It was pulled open from the inside before she'd had a chance to push it. Lily stared into the seemingly infinite darkness of the open door, unable to see anything at all. She felt her heart racing in her chest. "Mommy? Lily whispered into the void. Daddy? Lily's vision began to clear, and she realized with mounting horror that something huge was standing in the darkness, not 3 feet from her. The thing in the darkness let out a gurgling mockery of laughter. Hello, Lily Pad, it wheezed. So nice of you to join us. 2. Front page article from the Rural Crier, Monday, November 27th, 2000. Horror in the Heartland. Slaughter of family leaves officers stunned. Police responded to a frantic 911 call early this morning, only to find themselves thrown into a nightmare. Stephanie Pierce, 37, was found raped and viciously murdered in her own home, a farmhouse at 67 Willow Court, just outside city limits. One of her twin daughters, Lillian, age 7, was also savagely attacked and is in critical condition, according to her doctors. Stephanie had been absolutely mutilated, according to Officer Aaron Dempster, the first man to enter the home. I've never seen anything like it, noted Dempster, still visibly shaken in a public briefing earlier this morning. You would have thought it was an animal attack. I've been on the force for 24 years. We don't have killings like this here. I don't know what could bring someone to do this. The suspect in question is Arthur Pierce, 43, who was found in a catatonic state at the scene, having apparently mutilated himself as well as his victims. He was taken to St. Patrick's State Hospital in a separate ambulance from the victims, but died in transit from a massive aneurysm. We're still awaiting test results, but I wouldn't be surprised if we find drugs in his system, explained Dr. William Bentley, who performed an autopsy on Arthur Pierce. What he did to himself and what he did to his victims, coinciding with his subsequent brain aneurysm, certainly suggests some kind of chemical influence. Pierce was largely considered a model citizen. He was an elder at St. Ed's, said a close friend, who wishes to remain anonymous. Everyone loved him, his wife, his girls. He didn't have a mean bone in his body. At least that's what we thought. We don't yet know a motive. Frankly, I'm not sure a motive can be found in a case like this. Police Detective Walter Templeton said solemnly at this morning's press conference. The attack was so unlike anything we've encountered, frenzied and sadistic. We're looking into all angles, but I don't suspect we'll find a clear-cut message here. As for Lillian, the fact that she survived the attack is being described as a miracle. She shouldn't be alive, said Dr. Juliet Anderson, resting after spending over 6 hours performing emergency surgery on Pierce. I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but by all means that poor girl shouldn't have survived this attack. The fact that she did, I supposed, is a miracle, but that poor girl has a long road to recovery from here. It was Rosalind Pierce, her twin sister, who alerted authorities. After managing to escape from the house, she ran barefoot over half a mile to a neighbor's house, awakened them, and they immediately phoned the police. Rosalind, thankfully, was uninjured. The Rural Crier will continue to follow this story closely and report further as it develops. That is the prologue of Old Wounds. Everything else in the story takes place 19 years after that. So I hope you all enjoyed that super creepy opening chapter of the book. You can currently pre-order it on Amazon.com. The easiest way to find it right now, because it's not trending anywhere yet, is just to search my name on Amazon and it will come up. Like I said, you can pre-order an ebook or the paperback. I can't recommend the paperback enough because it's so pretty, but the ebook will be great too, and you still get to have the cover art attached to it. I'm so glad that you all liked it. It really means the world to me. Like I said, I've been working on this for 4 years, so that is just the beginning of a much bigger story. Thank you so much. You will get your hands on it on May 15th, 2021. But between now and then, there will be a lot of other opportunities to hear bits and pieces from it and get to know these characters a lot more. I will also be having a couple of giveaways between now and then for people that want a chance at getting their hands on the book much earlier. So please stay tuned to this channel, as well as facebook.com/oldwoundsnovel and CarrsanTMorrissey.com, which is my personal website, where I will be publishing a lot more information about where you can find this book. And yes, I know it's very far away, but there's going to be a lot happening between now and then before this book becomes available all over the world. Thank you so much, everyone. Really means the world to me that you enjoyed it so much. Neil Gaiman vibes. That's really cool. I never thought of that. Thank you. All right. with that, we are at exactly the 45 minutes mark, so I'm going to wrap this up unless anyone has any other burning questions about the book. I will answer any last questions. Otherwise, we're going to wrap this up for the night. Dun, 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 dun. Thank you, everyone. I love you guys. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so much.